Today's topic is
how to get your other half into the hobby.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to WAYPN. I'm Cal.
And I'm Sunny.
Today we're going to be talking about
How to get your other half into the hobby.
Okay, so how did I manage to do it with you?
Well, the most prominent memory I have, because I've been technically in this hobby for about 3 years now, was when I first saw your pictures of the minis that you painted. And I thought to myself, that is insane. There is no way you painted this thumb-sized model with such detail, and I was so impressed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you would count yourself in the hobby from the moment that you found interest in it, is that right?
I guess, because I would consider it as an introduction because I've never heard of miniature wargaming hobby or even where these miniatures even came from, why people were painting it. So I would consider that as my introduction.
Oh, okay. All right. I get it. All right. This one's kind of important for the people at home. Would you have been as interested if it wasn't me who was doing it?
Yeah, I think if any of my friends or family members who were into this and they showed me pictures of their models, I would instantly have been interested. I would have been like, how'd you do that? What is this? Tell me about it. And it's like, would you like to do painting with me? I was like, heck yeah, you know? To be fair, this is my personal response because I already have an interest in art and all sorts of different forms of art, so I would have responded that way. If you're someone who is not truly into art or have never heard of such a thing, you might respond differently.
So do you think it's the fact that it was purely a piece of art that got you into this? Or do you think if it was the gaming component or something like that, you'd still be as interested?
Well, it was mostly because it's art and it's at a miniature scale that it's so curious and interesting. You go, okay, these are figures. I've seen people paint figures, or I've seen figures in general, but why paint it at such a small scale? Which begs the question, what's the purpose? Which then leads on to, oh, you use it for games.
So, Sunny, do you know that meme, "Hey Susan, looking good"? Do you think that could be replaced with, "Look at this miniature"?
Okay, so you're saying if you were interested in the other person, you would find a way to like this hobby?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I would say that would play a pretty big part in it. But let's say you didn't actually have much interest in this person and they came up to you and they said, look at what I do. I think it's kind of hard to sit there and go, because it's actually very interesting. It's just too curious and too niche for you to look at it and go, but why?
Well, it sounds like you would have been on board no matter what. However, I want you to imagine that there's somebody who isn't as sunny and optimistic as you are. How would you introduce them to the hobby?
Well, in that case, to make it seem like it's not forcing your hobby onto someone else, you would have to constantly involve them or show the hobby to them. So let's say you painted up a mini, just go to your other half and say, hey, take a look at what I painted. And I'm sure they'll be interested because they want to show support in something you put effort into. I think a good way is to ask feedback on your models or even get some ideas, because that will force the other person to sort of think in their way how to improve your hobby, which will inevitably get them involved in the hobby as well.
I'm imagining myself in the shoes of the listeners, and I can only think that there was 2 words that you said there that will stick out like a sore thumb, which is consistently forcing them.
I can understand why you say that, but it's kind of like when I was just watching you paint, or whenever I come into the painting room and see what you're doing, I might go to the back of my mind and say, hey honey, have you considered this tool or this item? And it would be something that's like makeup or from traditional art, something you would have never considered, and you would have gone, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? And that makes me happy because it makes me feel like I'm helping improve your interests, even though I was only peripherally involved in the hobby. And I think a lot of other halves can do the same. You don't necessarily have to be actively involved by just painting or even playing games. You can still show interest by sharing ideas with your other half.
I think that's a good answer. However, when I hear it, the thing that I think is this is a very Sunny specific answer and is not a general woman answer or even other half answer that people could relate to, because you're artistic. You've got that background. And I was thinking, how can you subtly get people to come into the hobby to join you?
Well, I would disagree a little bit there, because let's say you are getting a lady into the hobby, that's one way you can involve them, by getting their perspective on things, and they can share something that's from their world that might improve your hobby. And if it's a guy, men tend to want to solve problems all the time. So if you share something with them, they're naturally going to want to take an interest and see where they can improve things. And they might come at it from a more logical perspective, but it's still involvement nonetheless.
So what are your tips to get somebody into the hobby?
Someone important to you into the hobby.
Okay, all right, yes. Someone like your other half into the hobby.
So step 1 would be to introduce the hobby to them. After that, get their feedback and perspective on things, and then consistently repeat this step.
Okay, and I think the other thing is make sure that they know this means something to you.
Yes, and I think an important part here is to show that you're open to new ideas, especially ideas that they're interested in. It could be Legos, it could be engineering, it could be makeup. Find a way to bring their interests into your interests, and that's how you can have a commonality between the two.
We have only been talking about the hobby side of it. There's a whole nother side of it, which is the gaming side. So, how do we get people into the gaming side?
Well, for me, I was interested to do the gaming side because I was interested in the hobby side, but games in general are fun. People will usually entertain wanting to play a game, but I think where people drop interest in games is when they get too complicated, or when people get frustrated and impatient in teaching how to play the game. So I think if we can reduce frustration and impatience and working together with the person, you are more likely to keep them in the gaming part.
This entire video, we've only been talking about successes. It's time to talk about failure. There's someone who introduced you into D&D, and you very much dropped it like a bag of potatoes. So, what did they do wrong?
Well, they basically told me that I would have known this if I read the 300-page manual. And I think that was the thing that made me drop the ball, because I was very excited about role-playing, playing pretend, essentially. And you don't usually get to do that anymore as an adult. And I was very curious and intrigued by that idea, super excited. But once it came to the part where I didn't understand anything, and they expected me to read a 300-page manual on my busy schedule and not try to explain things, it made me feel shut out. Now that I have some experience in playing games, I know that you're not meant to read a whole rule book. You just need to reference to several pages during a game. But as a complete noob, how was I supposed to know that?
You also talked to me about how this DM killed your character. How did that affect you? Do you think that was a big thing that stopped you from gaming?
Yeah, because only during specific sessions with specific players did I really actually enjoy myself. But because I was trying really hard to improve my role playing, trying to understand the game, when I thought I was getting ahead in the game and to just be killed off in the end with zero resolution, I just felt so demotivated and disappointed. Like, this is all my effort has to show for, a killed off character.
Now for a moment of compare and contrast. How is this different from how I got you into gaming with Frostgrave?
I think it was because the community, as well as yourself, was willing to be patient with me and teach me the rules and entertain my questions when I went, hey, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then they went back to the book, and because they themselves were not sure, it made me feel like I was on the same pace as them. I was on equal footing. It didn't feel like someone was trying to be more superior to me in this game because they knew more.
Well, this does lead to a very unfortunate question. What if the community hadn't have been as welcoming, and was there anyone who wasn't as welcoming, and did that make you feel anything?
I think for me, I was lucky enough to have a welcoming community, but I think the biggest thing, because I've now experienced both sides of, gaming communities, the biggest thing is to not make someone feel like they're stupid. I think if you can talk to someone without belittling them and, acknowledge that they are new to something and take the appropriate steps to involve them as such, I think you'll be fine.
Okay, I want to go over your tips for bringing someone in, but before we do, I want to talk about what we've been showing. And one of those things is
the lovers models, Fumiko and Adonis from our game Xor'veil.
Xor'veil. And where can they get these models?
By joining as a WAYPNer Elite on this channel.
And what about those other two models?
These other two models were models we won at a Valentine's Day competition.
And we've been so flat, Bicky, we haven't been able to get to them till now.
Yeah, so we thought this is a perfect opportunity to get them painted for this Valentine's Day episode.
What are your do's and don'ts for getting people into gaming?
Do be patient and don't make someone feel stupid. Make sure to acknowledge that they are new and to take the necessary steps to help them understand things.
And remember, if you're introducing somebody into gaming, keep them away from that guy or that girl in your community.
Remember that people remember negative experiences more than they do positive ones.
Now we have something that you can do with your other half.
And what's that?
Keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye. So how's that whole in sickness thing going for you?
Yeah, we're both sick. You sound like a choo-choo train and a muffler of a broken car.
These are the things she tells me while I slowly die.
Can I have a kissy?
No.